Can I say controversial stuff?
Yeah, you can say whatever you like.
All right.
How you doing, Nick?
Bloody good, Ray. How are you, mate?
I'm great. Welcome to Milwaukee.
I love being here in January. Every January, this would be my destination.
Really? Why is that?
Because everyone's here and everyone's happy to see you. My whole idea of getting into wine was that in the off season I would sail and ski. So I'm an extreme. I wouldn't call myself I don't like average climate, you know. I like it either really cold or really hot.
Yeah.
So you pick.
Well, and now you're living, well, I guess you're living in an airplane more often than not, but mostly California?
Yeah, but my base is in the most beautiful city in all of the U.S., Healdsburg. 9,000 people, 38 restaurants, 220 wineries with a Healdsburg address. And we're at the cusp of 4 appellations. So Chalk Hill, Alexander Valley, Dry Creek, and Russian River all meet in Healdsburg. So it's just a wonderful place, and it's an hour, just 1 hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge, and you're not, comatose with the traffic of Highway 29 driving through Napa. Pretty much 9 months a year. When I'm in the US, I try to get home for the weekends, etc. But once I left the corporate world, I sort of had this really weird feeling that I wasn't going to be busy enough. And so I went back to the countries that I was working in for the large corporations and found some wineries to continue to work with. And so today I work in 6 countries and we own vineyards in 3 countries. And I really enjoy the camaraderie of winemaking and the winemakers and the viticulturists that come along with that. Because to me, wine, I don't want to say this in a negative way, it's not that wine has become boring. I think wine has become a little bit more staid than it used to be. And I think there's 2 things that drive me. Number one is exploring new areas, which would, as far north as we can get or as far south as we could get. So we're looking at about the 49th parallel now. Going into those extremes, if we can get over to the 50th parallel, get colder and colder. And then the other area is altitude. So how high can we go? So north, south, and altitude for me are quite interesting regions to be working on, whereas, the valleys that have been easy to get to and the coastal regions have been very easy to get to. So those places have been overexplored and over-accentuated. And then the second thing is making sure that wine is culturally correct. And as a consultant, and there's sort of 5 of us that travel the world, we're all very good friends, but we all have different mantras. And my mantra is, when I'm consulting, I stay with a winemaker, I hang out with them on the weekends and go to parties, I hang out with their kids, I eat their food, I drink their wine, and I'm not going to come in and Americanize their wine. I'm not going to pick it at 16 alcohol, 17 alcohol, because I can make Napa Cab at 16, McLaren Vale Cab at 16, Maipo Cab at 16. And you know what? You line them all up and they all taste the same.
Right.
So the important thing is when somebody gives me a glass of wine, hopefully I can tell what variety it is and hopefully I can tell you what region it's from. But even with lower alcohols and better acidities and cooler climates, it's still difficult to do that. So I don't know if you saw the recent report that by 2100, the climate is going to be so much changed that we're going to have to be basically 500 kilometers north of where we are now to receive the same climate, and even further for rainfall. So I suggest we all perhaps move to Mars. They just found snow and ice there, right, on the caps. Well, if we got water, God forbid, maybe we could grow a grape.
Martian wine.
Martian wine. Nothing but red. My father was a very interesting guy. I think the main thing that I got from my father was entrepreneurial. And he was part of the early expeditions to the South Pole. So he went down to the South Pole in 1958, 1959, and he was surveying the Ross Ice Shelf. So he was an engineer, and they went down with dogs in those days. Unfortunately, a number of them were killed during that time. But he instilled in me confidence to not only be an entrepreneur, but also to work for yourself. And so I was going to be an engineer. So my first degree was in civil engineering or a Bachelor of Science. And the way I got into wine was I realized that I didn't really want to be an engineer. So in New Zealand was a very interesting country. It's more socialist than we are in the US, of course, but what it comes with is free education, free medical, and free retirement. So the problem, though, at the time when I went through school was if you didn't pursue the career that the government had just paid you to do, they wanted their money back. So I ended up in this scheme, you can Google it, it's called PEP, Personal Employment Program. The upshot was that I got positioned at a research facility at another university looking at organics. It wasn't called organics back then, it was called companion planting and double digging. And so we were growing pepinos and Jerusalem artichokes and dwarf apples and dwarf pears. We were trying to mechanize everything. But they also had a small little vineyard there. And this was in Canterbury. And now we were trying to figure out how far, they were trying to figure out how far south to grow grapes. Now, of course, you can jump on an aeroplane and fly for another hour. We grow grapes a lot further south than that now. But at the time, this was new and exploratory, and Marlborough, at the top of the South Island, which was 4 hours north, 5 hours north by car, hadn't even really been exploited. So we're talking about early days. And so I decided that I would stick around, and I went back and did a diploma in horticulture at Lincoln. And that's sort of what got me into grapes. Especially today, because the shortage of labor, the cost of land, the cost of planting, the cost of raw materials, just cost. So basically, we need to figure out how to mechanize effectively, efficiently, and quality-focused and still achieve the same quality with fewer people, fewer hands. And we are at the cusp, I think, of developing that. And in the very early days, the first mechanical harvesters were invented in New Zealand because we had a lack of labor. Of course, I wouldn't call them machine harvesters today. They were more like thrashers. You know, they sort of bashed the hell out of the plant until the grapes fell off. Now today, obviously, the machine harvesters today have got such huge advantages over hand picking. The biggest one in cool climate, obviously in Marlborough, is that we can send those machines out at a moment's notice and we can pick the whole of Marlborough in 5 days. We could never do that. And so if we see a big rainstorm coming or a thunderous hail or whatever, we can quickly run out and get all those grapes off the vine, and everyone can do it at the same time. The other thing, too, today is we can actually sort by the color of the berry and the size of the berry. So we have these, we have these red eyes that we can and we just blow the berries out as they come across the destemmer, and the destemmers are actually in the machine itself as well. So the technology, just as far as machine harvesting, is incredible. And when I talk about where I am in Chile and Moyeco, which is 12 and a half hours south of Santiago, I mean, you're in Mapuche country. It's very hard. There's no towns. There is nobody out there. So how do we ferry people in and out to even do the mundane work, And obviously I'm a believer in mitigated organics, that I still need labor for weed control. Sure. So how do I do that?
There's still always going to be the issue with hillside, though, right? Or is that something you're working on? I got a feeling you might have already come up with an idea.
No, I'm facing a situation with one of my own vineyards. Firstly, if you can't plant anything really that's over 15% slope, and certainly over 30% slope, you can't get any permits to do that. The only vineyards that exist today are the ones that have been grandfathered in. This is the one big question that I have about farming, is how do we mechanize hillsides? It's very difficult because you need to plant wider. So wider spacing to allow the machines to pass through, because if you can imagine, if you're on a slope, that vine is leaning over onto the path of the road, so you have to plant much wider. So the economics of planting a vineyard on a slope is much more expensive. So it costs us right now about $35,000 an acre to plant a vineyard on a hillside. To plant on the flat, you're probably talking about $25,000 to $30,000. So it's a little bit of a difference, but it depends on how many plants per acre per hectare you can get in. So let's say today, we produce 4 ton an acre of icon, let's call it icon quality. Today, in the rest of the world, we're going back in, we're doubling the plants. So that does not necessarily mean we double the volume. In fact, it's better than that. So instead of 4 ton an acre, we can get to 12 ton an acre of the same quality by planting. Sorry, I'm converting from metric back to feet in my head just to make it easier for your audience. But we're planting at about 7,500 vines a hectare, so 3,500 vines an acre, whereas the standard in California is about 1,800 vines an acre. So we're, more than doubling, but we can easily triple the tonnage and still maintain the quality because the vines are smaller. They're competing against each other for the same nutrients. And by crop control and the use of mechanization, we can make sure that berries remain smaller, so higher to skin pulp ratio, without dehydration. And dehydration is a really big issue as we go into global warming, but I don't want to get into that. So maintaining the turgor of the grape and also making the clusters more open so we get more even ripening through the cluster. And then we come through after veraison, drop the crop to whatever level we want, and we've stopped the cell division for 7 to 12 days, and that cluster is therefore not going to fill back up to the percentage that it would be today. So I think we're actually, I know that this would be risky to say, but I think the new viticulture and planting closer, we're actually improving quality, but that's a very hard concept for people to understand. Well, I went the torturous route of becoming a winemaker because after I finished my diploma in horticulture, I decided that I wanted to pursue viticulture. So that was the first time I left the country. I went to Australia and went to a little town called Wagga Wagga. Wagga, the University of it's called Charles Sturt University today. And it was built halfway between the Hunter Valley and halfway between the Yarra Valley. So the Yarra Valley's in Victoria and the Hunter Valley's in New South Wales. So they built the university in the middle there, and I did a diploma in viticulture. And that's really where my passion started, because it wasn't just about the wine. It was about where we were. We were in the Riverina. Now, the Riverina is not a really fancy grape-growing area, I mean, we lived there during the mouse plague, and the snakes were eating the mice inside the vines. I was dealing with a whole new culture. I was dealing with not just Australians. I was dealing with country Australians, farmers, and Australians and New Zealanders have this inbuilt rivalry from birth. And then I went back to New Zealand and was working for a very famous winery at the time. And I got sick of the winemaker coming out to tell me what to do in the vineyard. So I went back to Australia. I went to Adelaide and went to a little town called Gawler in the Barossa, which is where the University of Roseworthy was. And I did a postgraduate in enology. So the route was rather torturous, but looking back, I'm actually glad I did the horticulture and the viticultural first and then did the enology. Whereas today, most winemakers are just pure enologists. Right. And I'm giving a talk at a famous conference coming up next week, and I'm going to show a slide. One of my photos is going to be winemakers who do not get out of their cars. So even in a particular vineyard where I consult, they built the rows wide enough so they could drive a car down the row, so they can undo the windows and taste the grapes that way. And another photo of a famous winemaker standing under a pergola. A pergola is a big horizontal old trellis system, that was around 50, 60 years ago. Beautiful shade, so the winemaker will get out because he can stand in the shade. So this is, and how far we've come, and yet how far we haven't come, and I find it intriguing. And then, something that's a little bit controversial for me is there are sort of two sorts of wine people, or three or four, I don't care. But the main groups of winemakers for me are people like me, I hope. I mean, when I came to the US, I had $200 in a backpack, all right? I did not have a career in another industry. I did not have a wealthy partner who helped me out. And so I think there are two factions. There are the people that had the money who can buy what they want. I'm not saying buy what they want, but buy into the business. It's a glamorous business. It's a fun business. And the people are really cool. I mean, as we joked earlier, the dickhead factor in the wine industry is relatively low. But maybe the dickheads are a little bit higher over on that faction. Whereas us guys with nothing, but we're all friends. I mean, and it's also the only industry that I know where I can go and have lunch with a well-known winemaker from a large corporation, and I'll ask him a question on tannin manipulation, and he'll tell me what he does. There is no secrets, very few secrets.